Okay, so now for variable costing, we're using the same set of information. I guess I can move it over if it's easier to see. We're using the same set of data that we used in the prior problem. Beginning inventory is 0, units produced 10,000, units sold 8,000, direct materials, direct labor, variable overhead per unit, and my fixed overhead per unit. So it asks first, how many units are in my ending inventory? Well, just because my cost might change, my units don't. If I started with 0, I made 10,000, I sold 8,000, the calculation is exactly the same to find the units in ending inventory. So I'm not going to redo that. You can watch a prior video if it didn't make sense how I got it, but that is my ending inventory in units. Is 2,000 units in ending inventory. Cost per unit, here's where we are going to have a difference. So remember, under variable costing, I don't have fixed overhead included in my product cost. I only have direct materials, direct labor, and variable overhead. So my cost per unit is only going to be direct materials, direct labor, and variable overhead. So it's going to be $200 per unit rather than the $225 that I had under absorption. So my value of my ending inventory is 2,000 times 200, which is $400,000. So I've got a difference there of $50,000 for the value of my ending inventory. Next, we're going to do the cost of goods sold under variable income or variable costing and the income statement. So cost of goods sold, I do it in the same way. I know I still sold the same number of units. The difference is I've got my cost per unit is different. So per unit cost times units sold gives me my cost of goods sold. My per unit cost is 200. My units sold is 8,000. So my cost of goods sold is 200 times 8,000 or 1.6 million. I'm going to start the income statement the same, except for I'm going to use a little bit different titles because remember with variable costing, we're looking to separate out variable versus fixed cost. So I always start with sales. Okay, that's the same. And I still sold 8,000 units for $300. So my amount of sales is not different. Rather than cost of goods sold, we're going to say less my variable expenses since I did separate my variable expenses only. And really this is variable cost of goods sold. So my variable cost of goods sold, and that is going to be my number I just found, the 1.6 million, to find my contribution margin. 2.4 million minus 1.6 million, 800,000. So now I can take out my fixed expenses. So I know I have fixed overhead that I did not include before, and I also have my selling and administrative. Selling and administrative is given as $100,000. I do have to do a calculation for my fixed overhead because the issue here is they gave it to me in a per unit basis, but I need it in total because this is a financial statement and I don't have a per unit amount that I require. I need a total amount. So what I know is that fixed overhead was, and it specifically says fixed overhead is $25 per unit produced. How many did so it doesn't say per unit sold, per unit produced. So how many did I produce? I produced 10,000. So my fixed cost per or in total is 10,000 because I produced 10,000 units times 25. So 250,000. So my operating income, simply take my contribution margin minus the total of these two. I could have subtotaled those, but the 250 and the 100,000 to give me 450,000. So notice this $50,000 difference here is it ends up in ending inventory when we're doing absorption, but it ends up the all 50,000 goes as an expense, which is why I've got $50,000 less worth of operating income under variable costing versus absorption costing.